Hello, Piedmontsters, and welcome to Piedmontsters, the Piedmont Pilot Podcast, brought to you by your Piedmont MEC. I'm your host, Megan Johnson, Charlotte-based First Officer and Vice Chair of our Communications Committee. For the first time since our very first episode last summer, we are joined by Piedmont MEC Chair, Captain Kim Gott. She's with us to highlight the roles of various committees within our union operations and explain the best ways for our pilots to become involved with specific committees. As Kim mentions in the interview, we are seeking volunteers for 3 committees: FOQA, Aeromedical, and Merger. Each committee has a different workload and focus, but all are important. Additional volunteers would be greatly appreciated to help keep things running smoothly. This episode is being released just before Thanksgiving, and we want to take this opportunity to thank you, our pilots, for the work that you do to continue to make Piedmont the most successful wholly owned subsidiary in the American Airlines portfolio. As we move into the holiday season, we are reminded that flights are full and commutes are tough. Please remember to do the walk for jumpseaters. Please do everything you can to ensure that jumpseating and commuting coworkers receive the courtesy of your best efforts to accommodate them. For our commuting pilots, please take a moment to review the Piedmont Commuting Policy outlined in our CBA. If you have any questions, please reach out to your status rep. Also, on the topic of holidays, a reminder of our upcoming Piedmont Pilot holiday events. The Charlotte Holiday Party will take place on Saturday, December 13th from 1:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. at Victory Lane Indoor Karting in Concord, North Carolina. The Philadelphia Holiday Party will take place on Saturday, December 20th from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. at K1 Speed Indoor Go-Kart Racing in Cinnaminson, New Jersey. Both events are open to all pilots on the Piedmont seniority list and their families or guests, with activities available for guests of all ages. I'll include the links to details and the RSVP page in the episode show notes. Thank you, as always, for listening. Like and subscribe to Piedmontsters wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And follow us on Instagram at Piedmont Pilots. You can also email us at pdtpodcast@alpa.org with any comments or suggestions. We hope that everyone has a safe and happy Thanksgiving, whether that is at work or at home. And now, here is Captain Kim Gott, Piedmont MEC Chair, to discuss our union committees and how you can volunteer. Hello, and welcome back to Piedmontsters. We are joined today by Kim Gott, MEC Chair. She joined us last year for our initial intro podcast episode. We did an introduction to the MEC, so it is wonderful to have her back. Kim, say hello to the people.
Hi, it's glad to be back.
We're happy to have you, and we, as always, are appreciative of all the work you do on our behalf with the company and with the MEC. Today, we are here to talk about, within the MEC itself, how all of our different committees work and what role our different volunteers play. So, jumping right into it, Kim, can you tell us what the role of our committees are within the Piedmont MEC structure?
Yes, absolutely. So our committees are the heartbeat of the Piedmont MEC. The MEC sets policy and direction for our pilot group, but it's the committees that make those goals a reality. Each committee focuses on a special area like safety, scheduling, or aeromedical, and they are staffed entirely by pilot volunteers. Those volunteers gather information, work with ALPA national resources, and bring recommendations back to the MEC. So really, the MEC provides the why, and our committees handle the how. They're where the real work happens day to day.
Amazing. And we are, as always, so appreciative of all of our committee volunteers and chairs. I know you mentioned some of the examples: aeromedical, safety. How many committees are there in total? And what are some more examples that people might not realize?
I'm really glad you asked that, because I didn't even know how many we had until we were getting ready for this podcast. And we have 29 currently.
Oh my gosh,
have everything.
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah, we have a lot. Everything from merger, communications, scheduling, training. If there's a problem that you think of, we probably have a committee for it.
That's amazing. And so, as you mentioned, some of these different committees, there are a myriad, and some of them are more niche than others. But if a pilot or a member of our pilot group has specific experience or specific interest in a particular committee, what is the best way for them to apply to a specific committee?
So the number one best way to apply to a committee is to go onto the pdt.alpa.org website, log in. If you don't know your login, we can help you. Reach out, log in, go to the volunteer section, fill out a volunteer form. That volunteer form, we can only see the top 3 things, the first 3 things that you select. So limit it to 3. And then in the comment section, this is really important. Put why you want to be there. A lot of people leave this blank and you kind of get lumped into a chunk of just people who left it blank, and you may get overpassed if somebody puts in there like they went to school for safety, aviation safety, or aviation management, or a wide variety of things. We have people with communication degrees. We have people who are lawyers. We have all kinds of people that are serving on our committees, and that's where you're going to stand out and have a better shot at getting on one of the committees unless you leave it blank. You can also put on there, I'd like somebody to call me to figure out what's a best spot for me to be, and I really want to volunteer. You're probably going to get a call from me, and we're going to talk about your hobbies, your interests, things you like to do, and we'll try to narrow down where we think you should belong by doing that. Much like how we found you, Megan.
I was about to say, I think we've talked about this before on the podcast. I think it came up during your MEC intro interview. It might have come up since then, but I had applied to be a FOQA gatekeeper because I was like, this is so interesting. It must be so interesting to gather all the information and see kind of what's going on out in the real world. And I started talking to Kim, and she was like, boy, oh boy, do I actually have a job for you. I would like you to be on the communications committee instead. And here we all are. And Piedmonsters is just growing and thriving every day.
You've done a really good job with the podcast, so
thanks so much. And I love it, and it's really fun. So yes, the MEC chairperson Kim, but also our admin Jenny are both really, really great at kind of analyzing where the MEC has needs and also where people would fit, both with their skill set and with the teams that are currently in place to make sure that everyone's working together. And it continues to be a well-oiled machine. So that brings us to our next question, which is that if for some reason you volunteer and you're not selected for that particular committee, what are some reasons that it might not be a good fit, and who decides how that kind of vetting process works?
So there's multiple steps to the vetting process. One of them is volunteer forms come to Jenny and I, and we look at them, and then we send them to the associated committee chairs. And those chairs are the ones who are going to go through, and most of the time they'll reach out. They'll talk to you about what the job entails and make sure that it's actually a good fit. Like something like FOQA, people are like, oh, I want to be on FOQA. And then sometimes they find out that FOQA is a little bit more of a higher workload. We are trying to put more people on FOQA, so it's a lower workload, but it is a more involved committee. And when people find that out, sometimes they're like, I don't actually think I want to be on FOQA. And then we'll find somewhere else for them to be. So then that chair will kick it back. Once you've been selected by a chair to go on to that committee, then it has to be appointed by the MEC. And there's a couple different ways that has to happen depending upon which committee. Like the negotiating committee is appointed solely by the MEC. Some of our committees are appointed by the committee chair. So once that happens, we have to send out an email or we have to have a meeting with the LEC reps because they're the ones who actually confirm them and put them on the committees. So it can take a couple of weeks for this entire process to unfold. Now, if you're not selected, it does not mean that we don't want you. It just could have meant that we got 100 volunteer forms for that one committee, but we only needed 10. And I would love to tell you that we keep every volunteer form and we're super organized with it, but I'd be lying. A lot of times they get shuffled down because we get quite a few every month. So what you can do is when you see us put out an advertisement looking for volunteers, keep putting in those volunteer forms. Don't go, I put it in once. That should be good enough. It might not have been. You might have been beat out by somebody who has a degree in there and put that in there in the comment section and you left yours blank. So Definitely do that and then reach out to the committee chairs and be like, hey, I want to be on your committee. This is what I have to offer. And a lot of times the committee chairs will come to us and be like, hey, we're going to have a volunteer form for so-and-so. Can you make sure you pull it? And we'll look for them. As soon as they put them in, we'll pull them and start the process.
Yeah. And of course, especially given the nature of the industry, everyone's busy, everything's always changing, but also as flow numbers have increased, as attrition has increased over the second half of this year, those openings constantly are changing too. So just because you weren't selected for something initially doesn't mean that another opening won't present itself later. And we have over 800 pilots. So we're fortunate that so many people do want to volunteer, but it can be a lot of paperwork and a little overwhelming at times.
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up because over the next 6 months, we're going to be losing a lot of really good volunteers who have been with us for several years who are in key positions. We're talking committee chairs. A lot of our committee chairs that are in the safety umbrella, they're all going to be flowing. which is great. I'm so glad that we've increased phone numbers because people can get to American faster. But it's also causing a challenge for us because over the next 6 months, we're going to have to make sure that we stay staffed so that we can continue doing the work that we do and not go back to what it was a couple years ago where we were a chaotic mess. So we're trying to get ahead of that now and staff up for that to come.
Yeah, and that foresight is something that I think this particular MEC and our LEC reps have done really well, is keeping an eye on that and making sure that we're staffing committees accordingly so that we're not in a situation where we're backfilling empty positions all at once.
I'd rather be completely overstaffed and hiring stop and us just have extra committee members who are getting experience than us looking back going, we should have started this process 6-8 months ago.
Absolutely. So we kind of touched on it earlier, but if a pilot wants to volunteer, wants to get involved in union work, but they don't have a committee in mind, they're just willing to help wherever needed or willing to learn about different committees, what is the best way for them to go about that? Because I know you said only the top 3 committee selections appear when they submit a volunteer form. So what's the best way if they're just throwing their hat in the ring for the best way to serve the MEC as needed?
The best way to do that would be to go online again and read all of the descriptions for every single committee and see if any of them stick out. If at that point you're still unsure, send an email to myself and Jenny, and we can sit down with you. Hopefully not 800 of you do this, but if there's like a handful of people that do this, we can absolutely find the time to sit down and figure out where we think you would be best. And if we get it wrong, the great thing is we can just move you to something else. Maybe you start on FOQA and then decide that you don't want anything to do with the safety network and you want to go over and be on merger. We can do that. So sometimes it's just getting your feet wet and figuring out where you want to go after that. And we can absolutely pivot. There's no shame in people moving committees. People move committees all the time. Sometimes they get bored. Sometimes they find out it's not what they wanted. Some of them just get involved and we didn't have a opening where they wanted to go. And then it opens up and they move over there.
Exactly. Excellent. And then the last question I have is just, you mentioned that we're experiencing high level attrition. We expect that to continue for the next several months at least. What are some committees right now that need the most urgent help, that need the most urgent staffing assistance?
So I picked 3 because realistically, we're looking for staffing for almost all of our committees right now, just to get ahead of the wave. However, I did pick the top 3. Aeromedical is something that we're always looking for help with. We had a really great person. She was a nurse. She has since moved on. We have another person on there who's doing a really, really good job. We could always use a couple extra people on aeromedical. These people are going to help the pilots, point them in the direction of short-term disability, FMLA paperwork, making sure they're aware of what AMAS is, if they need to contact AMAS, those kind of things. It's not a real high workload committee, but it is one that's vital when somebody loses their medical and they're like, I don't know what to do, or they get sick, or whatever the case may be. So we are looking for a few more on aeromedical. We are looking for a few more FOQA gatekeepers. The good news is we're switching programs that the FOQA people use currently to a different program that is also used by another. Yeah, it is exciting. It's used by American Mainline as well as another wholly owned. And it's supposed to be a lot more user-friendly. So if you were previously a FOQA gatekeeper and got mad at how involved the system was, come back if you want. Or if you're looking at doing FOQA, the workload can be high, but we are adding people to lower it, and the system is supposed to be a lot more user-friendly. The third one, and before everybody freaks out, we're not merging. The third one is the merger committee. The person who's on merger currently will be retiring in the next couple of years. I think shorter than longer. I'd have to go look at his retirement date, but it is coming up. So we are looking to have somebody, 2 or 3 people on that committee at all times, because it is aviation and you never do know from day to day what could happen. Do I think there's a merger on the horizon? Absolutely not. I don't think that's on the table currently, but we do want to be prepared if it does and not be scrambling. I like to be proactive, not reactive.
And obviously, that's the whole point of staffing these committees and making sure that we do have people waiting in the wings, people learning, people training under the current volunteers and committee chairs, is that we're just always prepared for any situation and we're not left scrambling, because we want everything to continue to run as smoothly for our pilots as possible.
Absolutely.
Well, and to be honest, that's a really, really big part of what this podcast is aiming to do, is make sure that our pilots know what some of the different areas are, what the different committees are, what they do. We've talked to FOQA and ASAP committee. We've talked to the fatigue committee. We've talk to people at ALPA National. And a big part of that is just making sure that our pilots do know kind of what these different areas are and how all encompassing our union work is, because it's a lot more in-depth and involved than I think most people realize.
It absolutely is. There's so many things that you can do with inside of ALPA, and not just at ALPA Piedmont, but even on the national level. I don't know if you know this or not, but Jerry just got appointed to the National Committee for Flight Time Duty Time. So
yes,
we're really
we're
happy
very proud.
Yeah, we are extremely proud that somebody from little old Piedmont has
Little Piedmont
joined the National Committee.
It's Big Bad National. And for those that don't know, we do have an episode with Jerry from earlier this year. I believe it was January. We had a really great episode where we sat down and talked to him about the work that he's doing with the fatigue committee. And he is incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly involved, doing really great work to promote safety in aviation, but specifically at the regional level that can sometimes be a little bit overlooked. So if you haven't, go back and listen to that episode. But that's about all we have for today. Kim, as always, thank you for being here. Appreciate your time. We know you're very, very busy. And to anyone who's listening and has any questions, as Kim said, you can fill out the volunteer form on the website. It's also available in the ALPA app if you have that. Or for any additional questions, you can email any of your MEC reps, but especially Kim and Jenny Weatherman are going to be the two who are going to be able to help you analyze different committees and see what would be a good fit if you have any questions.
Megan, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Catch you next time.